Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Today we talk about shutter speeds. See you when I get back. Good morning and welcome to the Sunday Morning Mini. Come with me on a special journey where photography meets a bit of philosophy. I'm your host, Kevin Russo, photographer and educator. Stay tuned to see what's in this episode of the Sunday Morning Mini. Hello again and welcome back to the show. Today is July 15th, 2018. Welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series on practical photo tips. In this episode, we're going to talk about shutter speeds. A shutter speed is a certain amount of time your shutter stays open to allow light into the camera to make an exposure. Shutter speeds are expressed in seconds, like 1 second, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or fractions of a second, like 1/60th, 1/25th, and 1/250th. You can even express shutter speeds in hours. Shutter speeds can range from several hours long to 1/800th of a second and even faster on some modern-day mirrorless cameras. You can use shutter speeds to stop the motion of a fast-moving object or slow a shutter speed to allow an object to blur and give a sense of motion. Making long exposures, 1/30th of a second or slower, I would recommend a tripod. As a guideline, typically in bright light, you will be using a fast shutter speed. As the light dims, you will go to a slower shutter speed. Be careful that your shutter speed does not get too slow for you to hand hold, typically around 1/60th of a second depending on how steady you can hold the camera and lens. If your shutter speed does get too slow to hand hold, try raising the ISO of the camera until you reach a shutter speed that will allow you to hand hold the camera, typically around 125th or 250th of a second. Once again, this is dependent on how steady you can hold the camera. Slower shutter speeds, typically around 1 second or longer, are called long exposures. These next images were made purely as a technical exercise to show the difference between a fast shutter speed and a long shutter speed. In this first example, I used a fast shutter speed. Notice how the motion of the flag is stopped. This image was made at 2/1000th of a second. In the second example, I used a slow shutter speed. Notice the blur of the flag. This image was made at 1/2 a second. I find this image more engaging because of the movement. These next 2 images reflect my philosophy of go someplace you have been and see what you haven't seen. In this first image, the tree is static on a calm fall day. This image was made at 125th of a second. The second image, made on a return trip, same tree as the winds of winter came through. This image was made at 30 seconds. This image combines a slow shutter speed with intentional camera movement, or some call it ICM. I prefer to just think of it as another tool in the box of personal expression. This image was made at 1/40th of a second, handheld, while quickly moving the camera. This reveals a more abstract view of a bird in flight. The final image I will show is a series of 16 images, noting the passage of the tides and time. Each image in this sequence was north of 4 minutes long. Picking a shutter speed should be dependent on what you want the image to look and feel like. It's always important to remember, let emotion and image come first. Then adjust your camera settings accordingly. And that is your Sunday Morning Minute. Please join me next week when we will talk about the aperture, aka f-stops. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share on social media. I would greatly appreciate it. If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. Thanks again for watching. Have a great week, folks. See you next time on the Sunday Morning Minute.